Okay, lovely people. I must deeply apologise for the poor sound quality of my recording device. I can't fix it, they're just really cheap headphones. So today we're getting on with lesson 2. So this is going to build upon what we did in lesson 1, which was your brainstorming. And we're going to look at question design, and I'm also going to get you to start doing some journal entries, so which I'll explain along the way. You will also need 3 handouts today to help you along the way. So as always, so we'll start with our lesson intention. So today we're going to you'll work on developing some possible questions. So this is a development of possible research project questions that were based off some of the stuff that you're brainstorming that you did last lesson. The success criteria for this would be that I would like you to submit what you write, which is basically the narrowing of your topic to your questions. And you'll need to complete the exit slip, which is the questions at the end of the PowerPoint, plus the journal entries. Okay, so the handouts you will require, so there's a PDF and 2 Word documents. So the PDF is the topic to question guide. Now this PDF goes through in quite a lot of detail and gives examples of how to go through all those topics and look at different ways of looking at and how to write the question. The topic to question activity template is what I've created in response to that handout. So it's just a template for you to use and draft some of your questions, plus the journal template, which is you don't have to use that if you don't want to, but it gives you an idea, and you will need access to that at the end. Okay, so when we're going from a topic, so that's our broad kind of umbrella topic, to a question that could be something that we want to do as a research question. These are the main things you need to consider. So when we talk about is it feasible, meaning can it actually be researched? Can you actually find things online and sources online that will support your work? Now, this is really important because you can't always use Wikipedia. We'll do a bit of a lesson. We'll definitely do lessons on how to identify what's a good source and what's not a good source to use in terms of, especially for research purposes and going into year 12. And for those of you specifically wanting to go onto a university pathway. When we're talking about having enough sources, you will probably be looking at a minimum of 10 to 15 sources that you're going to require to complete this. Is it interesting? So is it actually going to maintain your attention? Will it challenge you or give you a chance to learn something new? Novel, meaning will it result in any original and key findings? So that you can, especially in regards to, it could be in regards to something around your career path. Is it ethical? Now, this is something we will go into detail in, so don't stress too much just yet. But when we talk about it being safe and ethical to research, if you're thinking about doing topics that cover something along the lines of maybe you want to talk about sexual assault, or maybe you want to talk about eating disorders and stuff like that, you do need to be very careful when you start to look at the different the approaches you're going to take for your research. And is it relevant? Meaning that does it actually meet the requirements of this subject? It would be very hard for us not to find a topic that we could not make relevant. So please keep that in mind. So if you're worried about anything, please send an email or message or come see us next week when we get to see you face to face, and we can work through this with you. So here's just this is from the SACE board, so tips on good question writing. So make it clear, Open, so the reason we use open-ended questions is because closed questions means that it's going to lead to like a yes, no response. Where what we want is we want our question to be narrow enough that we're not trying to put too much information in, but we don't want it closed off in which we can answer in a couple of sentences. We do want to incorporate higher order thinking, and generally speaking, if you have a hypothesis or something to investigate, it does make it a lot easier. And I'll give you some examples and some stems in the next couple of slides. So, the useful question stem. So this is a really good one. I found this to be the most useful slide that the SACE board ever produced for writing for basically research projects, but also going into Year 12, because you do actually do a lot of individual research in Year 12 in almost all your topics. So it could be, what is the relationship between Russia and Donald Trump? Okay, how useful is online learning in terms of impactful, meaningful learning? To what extent did sorry, there's a huge mozzie in my face. To what extent does science and religion, there are so many bugs in my office. To what extent does science influence religion? To what extent does religion influence science? Do they ever actually meet? Who knows? How effective are, okay, maybe we want to build something or we want to make something. Because I'm a food and hospitality teacher, I'm going to unfortunately go for that. How effective are thermomixers in a professional kitchen? You can do a comparison of, so I want to look at the movie adaptation of a graphic novel plus the original graphic novel, and I want to see, and I want to compare and contrast those. So I might do, so V for Vendetta is a really good example for those of you that, that haven't seen or read that. So the V for Vendetta, which was originally a graphic novel written by Alan Moore, and then a subsequent movie adaptation which was made, they are very, very different. And the author, Alan Moore, actually really hates the film adaptation, which I find really interesting. How important is, you might want to look at, so how important is fixing our oceans to the well-being of our planet? How accurately does meteorology predict the weather? How does food influence our brain function? Okay, so I know there's a lot of food related ones. I promise I'm not hungry, it's just that's my area of learning. So this is all really, really useful when you're starting to think about questions. When we're talking about question development, this is where I want you to look at the handout. So the topic to question PDF, which is on DayMap, and then the activity template. What I would like you to do is get those out for me. So this is this one. And I just realised that you can't see what I'm seeing. So hang on, bear with me 1 second. I will see if I can... Oh dear, okay. Hopefully, though, now you should... Oh dear, that's a bit... Okay. So I apologise for that. That's going to look real pretty. Okay, so when you're going to start thinking about your question, this is a scan from an official research project book that was produced. For the most part, it was quite unnecessary, so I've only got a few bits and pieces out of there. But this bit I thought was very, very useful indeed. So what you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself the following in regards to a particular topic, and in particular focus on those things that you put underneath. So as I said, like my interest is in science fiction, and then I put Star Wars, Star Trek, but in particular I'm looking at strong women. I want you to do the what, who, where, when, why, and how. So these are guiding questions that will help us really narrow and refine our questions. And it might even help you cross off some off your list if you're really struggling. So what we're going to do is you're going to, these are some examples provided. So we're going to, so if they're looking at slavery from memory by the look of it, yes, okay. So they wanted to know, so their thing was on slavery. So they've gone, what is a slave? Which industries use slaves? What are slaves making? And, just be aware that slavery is actually still very current in today. We're just not as well aware of it, unfortunately, but it definitely still happens. And then they talked about, so who's involved, where is it happening, when is it happening, why is it happening, and how it's happening. Okay, so these are all the things that you can start to think about. And this, as I said, will actually really start crossing out some ideas. So you can see here they've said that this is not good. The reason, when did it start, and when is slavery supposed to have stopped? They are not great questions because they are closed questions. They have a very short response and you are not able to really expand and explore on those. So that's why they have the crosses, whereas everything else has a big tick. So moving on. So this is the where they've drafted some different questions. So why is there a mystery about the ship, the Mary Celeste? What are the theories regarding the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste? So you can see that they're the same question, but they're ever so slightly different wording. So the really cool thing about both of these, but in particular draft 2, is that actually gives you a lot more to answer, but also really narrows down what you're researching. The reason why that's important is because if you get way too much in terms of what you're looking at and you're trying to read. So, for example, if you're just looking at Black Lives Matter, you are going to get inundated with information. And it is overwhelming and just makes everyone freeze and you don't want to do it. So that's why doing these types of drafting of your questions are really important. And then they refined their question further. To what extent is mutiny the most likely cause of the abandonment of the ship, the Mary Celeste? So there are 3 very good questions, but you can see how they've increased in complexity and giving you an idea of what they're actually going to be covering in their actual research project. Now, this one is, again, giving you all different examples, and you can see here they've given you different topics to show you, so including things that you might play. Sorry about my scanning there. And again, they're doing the who, what, where, when, why, covering all of that. Okay, so I'm just going to do the Star Wars one because it's me, sucked in. So who watches Star Wars movies? What movies are they watching? Where are they watching the movies? How are they watching the movies? And why are they watching the movies? So draft 1, why is Star Wars a successful film franchise? And then draft 2, do digital effects impact the success of the films? And then they've broadened that to what extent do digital effects have an impact on the critical and financial success of a film? So for me, I probably would have gone personally because they've talked about who's watching them, so they're actually focusing on the people consuming them, which is interesting. But you could also focus on the story element. You could focus on the characters. You could actually talk about the actual lore or the land that and the world that they create. All these things you can actually write about. Same things with games. I've had a lot of people ask me questions about games. Please consider, if you're wanting to look at games or gaming in general, there are things under that. So I would not necessarily recommend looking at just one game unless you're looking at potentially like the story development, especially for something like Last of Us, which has an amazing story and it's basically like a movie. Another one that's also good for is looking at the aesthetics, or anything. There's quite a few that have amazing game design that you could discuss. You could even talk about how the story impacts you as a player, and the playability, and the likability of that actual world. Another really cool one is, so thinking of Portal, for those of you that are gamers. So Portal, you could talk about like the importance of the companion cube. You could talk about the use of humour and the importance of humour that is used, especially from GLaDOS's point of view. So all that's really, really cool. For those of you that are really into your sport, I'm so glad Mr. Brock is on board. Brooke is on board because he actually teaches sport and he will be able to help you more than I can. But with with anything to do with sport, you can do injuries. You can think about ways you can improve something. So it might be that you want to improve a particular skill. Again, just look at those who, what, where, when, why, and then start pulling it out. Now, you might do this a few times to the same question, and that is okay. What we're wanting to see, though, is this real kind of pulling out of information, because we need to see your thought processes. We need to understand where you're going with it, and this is going to be the most beneficial thing you do in terms of really deciding which way you want to go. So the activity sheet that you now require is, for some reason, not here. That's handy. There we go. Okay, so all I've done is I've essentially copied the template from that document, and I've gone in here your topic, your guiding questions, and then your draft 1, 2, and then your final research question. So can I ask you to have a go at that? And then I want that submitted by day map. So have a go at all of that. With the journaling, what you're going to do is... sorry, we'll follow on. Yep, so now I want you to, as I was saying, I want you to have a go on your own. I'm just going to make sure that that's actually recording the right thing. Yep. So you're going to have a go. So broad topic idea, as I said, like maybe science fiction and traditional Disney. So an area of interest for me would be strong and powerful female characters. So especially if we talk about things like Aliens with Ripley. You're looking at Princess Leia in terms of Star Wars. You're looking at Catherine Janeway from Star Trek. So these are all really powerful, strong female roles. Whereas traditional Disney portrays women as weak. There's a lot of focus on them needing to be rescued, and that their bodies and their their ability to look beautiful and sing is more powerful than their personalities. So that really kind of gets into what kind of gender roles are we trying to sell to young girls, or girls in general. And also what male expectations of girls then become after watching these type of things. So it's all very interesting. So I went on the impact of characters because that is an area that I find very, very interesting. So who is being impacted by these characters? What is being taught to young girls? When do these messages have the greatest impact? So is it in that really young years when we're really playing a lot of that traditional Disney? Or is it later in life? When do these messages about gender roles really kind of sink into the subconscious? So there could be a whole awesome stuff around brain development I could throw in there. What do girls get these messages from about gender roles and expectations? That's getting back to what I was saying. How are they receiving these messages? So is it just passively through watching these movies? Are they then reinforced by what's happening in the home? What's happening and to really enforce that idea. Why are there more strong and powerful female characters built into science fiction as compared to mainstream movies and or Disney films? Although that has recently made a very strong switch, which is really nice to see. But if we look at traditional Disney, not so much. Okay, so I want you to now do this. Again, I'm hoping by now most of you would have almost like a top three. And I would like you to do this. So I want you to do for at least topics 1, 2, and 3. And I want you to complete that in the Word document. And I would like you to submit that Word document when it's completed. So I've opened up a Daymap link for you to do that. Now, getting onto the journal writing. Now, the journal writing, I'll just bring up the template. So the journal writing and the template, this is actually going to form part of your folio for research project, which is why I'm getting you to do it. So the three things that I really want you to focus on when you're writing, now you do not have to use this template, you can write this however you want, is I want you, for this entry, I want you to talk about your processes of refining your topics to a question. And I want you to talk about all of those things. So what did you do? What I did, what are the actions that you completed? So you're going to talk about all the thought process behind your questions. Do you have any reflections on this? So what do you think could be pros and cons of doing that particular topic? Are there any concerns about ethics or access to information? And then what is the planning as a result? So what do you have to do next as a result of these things? So for most of you, it should be that the planning as a result is that you now need to do research. Okay, so it does not have to be long. I'm not expecting this to be long. I will quickly show you some SACE exemplars that I've copied and pasted in. So this is just from one SACE exemplar from a couple of years ago that was provided by the SACE board. This particular person got I think it was like a B grade. But just to show you that it doesn't have to be super complex. So this person did one whole comment just for for a whole month. But they talked about some of the language. They talked about the things that they spoke about. They talked about the different people that they went and visited. And then they went on to talk about how they analysed a video. And then they talked about some of the actual issues that they came across. So really, really important. If you're coming across issues, please do notify, put that in there. Because a lot of what we have to expand on later is how you responded to those problems. Okay, so if you might go, okay, so my computer crashed. As a response to this, I made sure that I was backing up my work from then on 2 computers plus a hard drive. Okay, so what did you do in response to issues? There's some really key things. So as I said, you do not have to use that template, but I really want you to talk about, write about what you did, why you did it. So you're talking about your thought process there, what you learnt, if that's relevant. You might not have learnt much at this point in stage. That'll probably at a point in time. Oh my gosh, sorry. But it can be very much when you're doing your research about the things that you've learnt that have gone, oh my gosh, that's going to completely change the way I do my research. And you will find that things will progress along the way. The final version of your question might change, and that is okay. Because as you learn things, you should be responding to things you've learned. And then things that you have to do as a result. So again, that's showing your planning. So in these journals, we want to show the thought process, the learning, and the planning as a result, all which are really important to include, especially if you're wanting to hit those upper grade bands. The last thing I'm going to ask you to do, so there's going to be 3 things that I would like you to submit before I see you on I think it's the 16th. I would like you to submit, your first journal entry. I would like you to submit the document that has your questions on it, so the Word document, and I would like you to take your brainstorming and fill out a lotus diagram. Now, this is the template that I've provided. If you want to use something different, you can. So this is just really expanding out on stuff you've already done. If you would like to keep going on those other programs that I've suggested, feel free, but this is really starting to break it out. So again, let's just say I've got Star Wars here. Go away, thank you very much. And this is already in Word, which makes it a lot easier. So let's just say this is Star Wars. I said it was science fiction, didn't I? Okay, so I said that was science fiction. Okay, so I'm going to go with red. So I'm going to put science fiction here. And then I'm going to put in here. So again, we ignore my terrible spelling. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about female characters as one option. I'm going to talk, oh my God, Farron. I'm going to talk about, maybe I want to talk about the world that's created. I want to talk about the film's success. So I'm pretty sure from memory, George Lucas sold Star Wars for, I think it's like $11 billion or just over $11 billion to Disney. And then I want to talk about, you could even talk about the sale. Oh my God. Okay, so all that kind of stuff. So you don't have to fill out all these boxes, but try your best to put in as many as possible. And the idea is that, all these things should connect back to that colour in there. So again, purple matches purple, so on and so forth. So can I ask that you, and then on these sides, you could add any kind of notes or discussion points, or again, you can talk about your thinking processes, all those things. Really pull out your topics in here. We can, and again, this will be used for your folio in research project. So it is exactly why we're asking you to do it. We're not doing this for no reason whatsoever. So again, I'm going to reiterate, I want your journal entry, which should be one journal entry. The length of it is totally up to you. Please follow the suggested structure. So your writing is succinct and relatable to what we're doing. I want to see the Word document, so that is the topic to question. I would like to see this for a minimum of 3 topics, ideally. If you're really struggling with that, just focus on the one, and we can go from there. And so lotus diagram, journal entry, and the topic to question activity. Please put your name on everything, just in case, and upload it to Daymap. So I'll just actually show you. I've closed Daymap, that's handy. Okay. So if I go on to Daymap, I'm going to come down here to assessments. You can see here that, apparently I've got 2, my bad. I'll delete this one, so please ignore that. So I want your lotus diagram, the journal entry, and question development. Please note that this is not marked, but it is required because it will be implemented into your folio for research project. So you should be able to click a link and upload it, and it will go under your name. Okay, I hope that's clear. And I really look forward to seeing you all back on the 16th, and actually doing this face to face. In the meantime, if you have questions or concerns, or you're really struggling, please let me know, because what we can potentially do is set up like a little bit of a tutorial group with a few of you, and maybe do small groups to really help guide you through individually some of that stuff. Okay, awesome. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.